Hi friends, this is episode 2 of Road to $1 Million. Today we'll be talking about 3 paths to wealth and freedom. My guess is if you clicked on this video, you're most likely terrified, just like I am, of money and a lack of freedom preventing you from achieving your purpose or your goals or whatever you want to call it. So today I'll help you discover the right strategy for you, because there are these 3 paths that I've learned from a guy called Naval, and today I want to expand upon them and show you what each of them is about so that you can make the right decision about which one is the right one for you. The thing is that money doesn't necessarily equal freedom as we're taught. Having more money doesn't necessarily equal freedom. We can look at some people who earn a lot of money, like doctors. What will often happen is they'll get pay rises, like something we'll get to in a second, but their spending will increase more rapidly because they want a bigger house, kids, car, whatever, and their spending just grows more rapidly than their earnings. So even though they might be earning a lot of money, they don't have freedom, which is ultimately what we want to make sure that we don't get stuck in a job we hate, in the rat race. So let's start off with the builder, one of these 3 archetypes, these 3 paths that you can choose. The builder is characterized by a leadership ability and an entrepreneurial way of thinking, and just wanting to solve problems in the real world, and likes to build stuff. So you might already know that you're the builder, and if so, you can build all sorts of stuff, a business or a brand, a personal brand maybe. But the key is to have equity, to have ownership in whatever it is you're building. So you might be the founder, or you might join the team later, but the key is equity, because as the good Naval also teaches us, is that equity is, or having equity is what will eventually buy your financial freedom. Renting out your time or selling your time for money will not make you rich and happy and wealthy. Or maybe it will make you happy, but whatever. It will not make you wealthy, because what will happen is, again, like with the doctor, you will make some money, and that money you might make more money over time because you get pay rises and but your spending will always, your lifestyle will always grow with that. So your lifestyle inflation, as it's called, you will want more, but your spending just can't keep up with that. And that is why you need an asset, some equity in some business or some bonds, some stock portfolio, something that can over time buy your financial freedom. And that is what we'll get to in a second with the investor. But I just want to share another idea here with the building a brand, which I think is a great way to, a personal brand maybe, to buy your financial freedom and to kind of build equity in a very tax efficient way. Because some assets, an asset could be like a stock, a bond, but it could also be a personal brand. And the thing with the personal brand is it's not really recognized by the IRS as as an asset, and which is why you don't pay tax when your personal brand goes up in value. Mr. Beast hasn't gotten a big check for, like, every time he got 1 million followers, he would have to pay some kind of amount of money, because those followers generate a lot of money for him in terms of ad revenue, in terms of sponsorship deals, in terms of like all the businesses he's building off of that now. So of course he still has to pay tax on the money he generates from the business, but the value of the asset increasing, no tax to be paid. And the value increasing, for example, you have a stock that you own, you buy some Apple stock, it increases in value, you collect the dividends and pay the taxes on the dividends, but you also have to pay taxes on that increase in value. And the same with a home, and the same with all kinds of other things. And so that, I'll just close this window real quick. That doesn't happen with the personal brand. So a little idea for you there. The next one is the investor, the investor also wants to own a piece of a business, have equity in some way. And the thing is, it's other values that the investor will need. It's less practical and less just like less action, but it is more patience and emotional, being able to like emotionally regulate yourself, I guess, when you really want to press the sell button because everything is falling. So you have to be like a stoic, basically. And the investor will provide the money for like investing in bonds, stocks, or maybe take an ownership position in something that the builder has built. And you might think, where does the investor get all of his money? And the thing is, he utilizes the compound interest, which over time will make him a lot of money if he is patient. So you don't necessarily have to have a lot of money to start with, but you have to have a long time horizon. And here's the kind of the formula for investing and making money with compounding money. And it says that the amount of money times the return you get each year times the amount of time gives you your return. And the thing is, these two, the amount you start with and the return, almost become irrelevant if you have a long enough time horizon. So let's say you start with $1, which is not a lot of money, and you only get a 5% return, which is not a lot of return, but you hold the thing for 200 years. So you're like, you pass it down to your kids, your investments, and over those 200 years, you're going to have a lot of money, even though you didn't start with a lot. So the investor knows this and utilizes this principle of compound interest. And yeah, there's the 4% rule, which is something that comes from the Trinity study, that has been a lot of studies around this. But basically, if you look at what the market has performed historically, if you have a portfolio of like 50% stocks, 50% bonds, then this study says that you can pull out 4% each year from your portfolio, and the portfolio can sustain itself. So without really having any negative effect on your portfolio and without shrinking the portfolio, you can pull out 4% a year. So you can engineer this backwards and say, how much money do I want each year? Well, I could live on 50K a year, let's say. Okay, then I would have to have $1.25 million invested. And of course, this is based on historical averages. So if the future is uncertain, you might want a lot more than that. You might want to live on 100K, and you might need a couple million, $2.5 million dollars to do that. So that is the 4% rule, that you can withdraw 4% a year-ish. Yeah, so again, it's equity. Equity will buy your financial freedom over time, which we'll get to in a second down here. The third one I've called the genius, because the genius just doesn't look at all these, doesn't get tempted by the business builder or the investor, but has a more practical view on things. He's like, okay, I could go out and learn how to build a business or whatever, but I have actually a job that I already like. So why don't I just stay here? And maybe I want to advance so I can work remotely. And then I also have achieved the freedom. Maybe, as most of us, we don't like our jobs. I think it's like 60% of people or 80% of people are like not really engaged in their, 80% is not really engaged in their job. So what about the 80%? Well, if you want to take this path, then you'll have to think outside the box. I remember seeing an interview between two people, and one of them was like, I have this job and it's, yeah, but I love my vacations. 6 weeks every year, I go down and I scuba dive for 6 weeks, and it's wonderful. I take the whole family and we enjoy it so much. And it makes the whole year of work worth it to just go down there and just for 6 weeks, just have a great time. And this other guy who was a millionaire, investor and entrepreneur was like, why don't you just become a scuba dive instructor and just do that for your whole life, like every day? And the millionaire was like really can you say, like, just mind blown over the fact that why don't people like think outside the box? Why are there these things, these it's just really the norm just to have a job that you don't really like and then go have fun in your weekends or in your holidays. But why can't you just turn your work into your holiday? And maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you would like to keep it as a hobby and you think it would destroy some of the fun if you turn it into your full-time thing. But for most people, I think this is really, really good, because a lot of people are against this narrative on the internet with everyone can be an entrepreneur, just go start a business. A lot of entrepreneurs are like propelling this narrative of like, go start a business, just go try it and do it and it's going to be awesome. And people are like, well, I actually like to have a more predictable job where I can do things. If that's you, then you might be down here and you might try to turn your work into your passion and see how you can merge the two. And oftentimes you can. There are a lot of jobs which include like skiing, ski guide, a nature guide, a hiking guide, a scuba diving guide. You can start a YouTube channel around whatever you're doing. There's so many possibilities. So it's just about like, yeah, taking the first step, I guess. So these are the ways. I think I'm like a mixture of these two. I'm builder, but I also have like the investments. But I think mainly the builder. This is just like portfolio and just like making sure the money doesn't disappear with inflation. But my brother, he's down here a lot. He's like has these hobbies, which is basically his life, fishing and photography, and he should think about how he could turn that into a business, which he's also currently trying to do. So we are all very, very different, and we might, if we choose the wrong path, we might end up a place that we don't want to be, even though we might build a successful business. That might be not the right choice down the road. So you have to think real good about what do you really want deep down, not just what have you been conditioned to want, because that can be very different from what you actually want. So let's talk about quickly something that is very important, no matter which of these you choose, is understanding assets and liabilities. So let's just go over it real quick here. Assets is something that puts money into your pocket. Liabilities takes money out of your pocket. So usually you'll buy these assets and liabilities. You'll buy a stock, you could buy a bond, you could buy a brand, build a brand. You could buy a rental, buy a house and rent it out, or a skill. Skill could also be an asset. Let's say you took a course and learned how to be a coach, and then you can charge more money. So that puts money in your pocket. Liabilities could be a car, a house, clothes, or bad habits. Bad habits, for example, drugs, alcohol, gambling. That can cost you a lot of money, and it does cost people a lot of money. So don't buy liabilities, buy assets. Here is a little sneak peek of what happens over time if you end up buying mostly assets or mostly liabilities. Let's start with liabilities. Here is your starting point. You start your career and you get a pay rise. You get pay rise, you get pay rise over time. This is money. And then at some point you kind of reach your maximum earning ceiling. But what happens is here maybe you get a kid, which costs money, and suddenly your expenses start climbing even faster, and maybe you buy a house, or maybe you buy a car here, or a yacht, or whatever, and then your expenses start climbing even more, because remember, it's a liability. You're buying liabilities, which you don't only have to pay for the liabilities, you also have to continuously pay for the gasoline, for the repairs and the roof on the house, whatever. So what will end up happening is you might have profit here, or have discretionary income here that you can spend because your income is above your spending. But at some point, those two reverse, because if your income doesn't grow and your expenses grows more and more, then at some point you'll end up in debt and you'll end up with no excess surplus money that you can spend on whatever. So don't buy liabilities. Instead, try this: buy assets. Here you also get the pay rise, the pay rise, the pay rise, but you invest in these kinds of assets here, and over time, and possibly you also build a business, or you have some kind of equity, which adheres to this rule here of compound interest. So at some point you'll have this really sexy exponential graph. And yeah, of course, over time your spending also increases with inflation and with your lifestyle. You get kids, you can't really, but you can keep down. You can rent a house instead of buying it, or you can instead of buying a huge car, which most people do, you can buy a cheaper car, and you can take the money that you then have in excess, and you can put it into your assets, and this will happen over time. You will have a lot more difference between your spending and your income, which means you'll have a lot more freedom to then go out and buy your yacht, buy your huge house in the Beverly Hills, or whatever you want to do. But you have to have time. Time is the important part. The starting amount and the return is irrelevant if you have enough time. So get started now, guys. Yeah, that's kind of. I'm really happy that I recognized this at such an early age. I think it was 14 when I started investing in stocks. Made some really bad decisions and lost a lot of money in the beginning, but nevertheless, a lot of years to compound is ahead of both of us. So let's get out and choose a path, and let's get rocking and rolling. This was episode 2 of Road to 1 Million. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.